I'm Kathy Carey, and I'm talking about color theory. The topic right now is going to be the 3 different ways that you can manipulate color. I've got some charts here. The first way is temperature. Now, temperature is the difference between warm and cool. Those are opposite in temperature. In value, we've got the opposite of light and dark. And in saturation, we've got the difference between brilliant colors and neutralized colors. So let's start with temperature. Let's look at yellow first. I think yellow is probably the most difficult color to mix and to notice its temperature because they're very similar. So looking at yellows, we've got warm yellow. So let's think about some of the descriptions of warm yellow. Warm yellow is going to remind us of summer and springtime. It's going to look more like early morning light, bright, almost acidic light, sharp light, glare light. Cool yellow is going to remind us of afternoon light and fall and winter. It's a more mellow light, kind of like golden hour light at the end of the day, would be a cooler yellow light. So what I want to do is I want to give you things that you already understand and know to remember the temperature of the color by. When we're talking about warm yellow, we're talking about lemon yellow. So we're going to link that to the idea of summertime and warm weather, warm yellow, warm lemons, warm time of year, and we've got lemon yellow. As it turns out, the pigment color in a tube of paint, there's actually a pigment color called lemon yellow. So this is an acidic yellow. Some people think this color has an undertone of green in it, but it really doesn't. It has an undertone of yellow. Each color is its obvious color, but then it also has an undertone color. Lemon yellow, warm yellow, is the only color that has its same color as an undertone. Cool yellow, I want you to think about a harvest time of year, the fall, winter time of year, and that's this color of cool yellow, is that harvest time of year. A cool yellow has an undertone of red. It's not really orange yet, but it's moving in that direction. In pigment, our squash yellow color is most likely going to be called cadmium yellow, and it has a slight undertone of red, so it's cooling off. So I'm going to show you a chart that shows you the different stages of depth and how color theory helps to make them look like they have that illusion of depth on a flat plane. So if I'm going to be doing flowers, say the flowers are closest to me outside the window, and then I see some at a window box at somebody's house, and then maybe I can see some more on a hill that's off in the distance. We know from a linear perspective that those flowers are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as they move away from us. But you'll notice on this chart that if I don't change the color, instead of looking like this, these flowers are laying down and going back in space, it looks like they're hanging in space. It looks like they're vertically hanging in space instead of laying down in space horizontally. So how do we achieve that? Well, with color theory, it's the way you layer the colors. So you'll notice how just by changing the colors, this now has the illusion of depth. We've created horizontal atmospheric perspective. We start with warm yellow, we cool it off to cool yellow, then we neutralize the yellow with its complement. The complement of yellow is purple, which we get this color, and then we add white to that color to get this misty color, which looks like it's the color farthest away from us. If we didn't layer the colors in the right order, this is what happens. It looks kind of awkward. The space doesn't really describe what's really happening, what we're trying to communicate. What we've done in this one, instead of creating horizontal atmospheric perspective, we've actually created vertical. So look at this now as if these are flowers on top of the hill, and these are flowers on the bottom of the hill. These are maybe in shadow, and maybe these are in light. Warm colors really describe being in the light, and cooler colors, even though it's still yellow, it's a cooler version, describes being more in the shadow. Cooler colors are going to be at the bottom, and warmer colors are going to be on the top when we're creating vertical atmospheric perspective. But let me give you an example of 2 reasons why you might want to use vertical perspective. If you're trying to show a tree is very tall, the base of the tree would be in shadow, and then as we move up the tree and the sun starts to hit it, we're going to have the light warming up the color. If it's a very tall tree like a sequoia, we then might have the tree actually getting kind of neutral as it starts to go out of our depth, and then misty maybe as it disappears up into the clouds. Now let's talk about red. So with red, we've got warm red, which is going to look more like morning light, summer and spring. It's going to be closer to orange because warm red has an undertone of yellow. Yellow being the warmest color is going to make this red warmer than this red, which has an undertone of blue. And you can kind of see this color kind of turning purple as that blue influence starts to turn your red into more of a magenta or a middle red color. So we've got our tomato, which is going to be a warm red. And you can really see the yellow undertone in this color that's making it be a warm color. So we're going to link tomatoes to summertime and warm times of the year. And we're going to remember that a warm red is linked to tomatoes. Warm red has that yellow in it that's giving it that warm color. The pigment color that would be linked to this, very typically, is going to be called cadmium red. So cadmium red is a warm red, classic warm red. A cool red is going to be linked to a harvest time of year. So an apple is a good description of this color. And you can really see that in these colors right here. Cool red has a lot of different variations. It can go from some of these colors over here all the way into these deep magenta kind of colors. So we have more of a variety in the cool reds. It might go from a pigment color called alizarin crimson, or the furthest cool red is going to be a magenta. So this is a quinacridone magenta, your coolest red. And now we're going to talk about blue. So again, we're going to look at the undertone of each color. The undertone of a warm blue is going to have yellow in it. And remember, when yellow is the undertone of something, it's going to be warmer than something that has red as an undertone. So warm blue has a yellow undertone, and when you look at these two colors, you can almost see this color turning into aquamarine, which would be a little bit of green, and green has some yellow in it, so we can kind of see where that yellow is coming from. We're going to link this to morning light and summer and spring. Cool blue has an undertone of red, and you can see this color is turning more into purple. And we're going to link this more to afternoon light and fall and winter. And I think the easiest way to remember this is to link it to the color of water that you'd be willing to go swimming in. I would want to go swimming in A. That looks like warm tropical water. All I did with this color is to just give it that red undertone, and I've moved it very cool blue in this color. So you can see that this feels colder. So let's look at some of the pigment colors that you might find for these colors. You can have a range of pigment colors that will give you this warm blue. One of my favorite ones is called manganese blue. You could also use azure blue, cerulean blue, or also pigment colors that are warm blue and have a yellow undertone. Your classic best use of cool blue is going to be ultramarine. French ultramarine is the best cool blue. It has an undertone of red and is going to look like it's moving more towards purple. So now we're going to move on to our last way to manipulate color, which is value. And value, I think, is something that everybody understands. The idea of moving from white to black with the grayscale in between. But if you're not very familiar with this, I'll give you some tips about how to work with value and become more familiar with it. If you're working from photographs or printed material that you can have a black and white image made from, like a copy of it, it's a good idea to make a copy of your color photograph as a black and white. That way you can see the range of grays that are created by the colors. Some people can be thrown off sometimes by the idea of a color. They'll think, oh, a mountain is a dark color, but in your picture, your photograph, you might actually see that in black and white, the mountain is a lighter shade of gray, and you might be surprised by that. But one of the ways to also get better at doing this is to think of the scale from 1 to 5. 1 is white, 5 is black. 2 is light gray, 3 is medium gray, and 4 is dark gray. Look out into your environment or in your room or when you're driving in the car and try and notice the things that are fully white. Now notice the things that are fully black. And then from those two polar opposites, you'll be able to kind of move towards things that aren't quite black and things that are a little bit darker than white. The other thing to consider when you're using values is that each color of our hue set of the primary and secondary colors has a natural value along this scale. So you'll see that yellow falls under about a number 2 value, orange falls under about a number 3, red, purple, and blue are very dark values. They can hold the value of black in a picture. And then green goes back to a slightly lighter value. Okay, and that's going to wrap up our 3 ways to manipulate color in color theory.